I stood there in my wedding dress, frozen in the doorway of the venue, as my sister Marin screamed at the security guards blocking her entrance. She was wearing a wedding dress. Not just any white dress, but a full bridal gown, more elaborate than mine, with crystals catching the light like 1,000 tiny accusations. My mother stood beside her, face twisted in rage, shouting that this was a family emergency, that I was being cruel, that I was ruining everything. Behind them, my father looked at the ground. The music had stopped. Every single guest had turned to stare. And for the first time in my 28 years, I did not apologize. I did not rush to fix it. I stood there, my hand in my Uncle Mateo's, and I let them expose themselves. If this story resonates with you, if you have ever felt like the scapegoat in your own family, please hit that like button and subscribe. Your support means the world, and I promise this story has a twist you need to hear. Drop a comment below if you have ever had to choose between your peace and keeping your family happy. Now let me take you back to where this nightmare really began. 2 weeks before my wedding, my phone would not stop ringing. Evelyn Mercer. Mom. The name flashed on my screen for the third time in an hour, and my stomach clenched the way it always did when I saw it. I was at my final dress, fitting with my maid of honor, June, trying to feel the joy that every bride is supposed to feel. The seamstress was pinning the last adjustments to my ivory gown, a simple A-line dress that made me feel beautiful in a quiet way. But my phone kept buzzing against the cushion beside me, and I knew that quiet feeling would not last. June looked at me with those knowing eyes. We had been friends since college, and she had witnessed enough family dinners to understand what my mother's repeated calls meant. Nothing good. I let it ring out twice more before June finally said, "Sierra, just answer it. The anticipation is worse than whatever she wants." I picked up on the fourth call. Before I could even say hello, my mother's voice cut through. "Sierra, you need to come to the house right now. Marin needs to talk to you about something important regarding your wedding." My heart sank. Marin. My older sister by 3 years, the golden child, the one who could do no wrong. Every achievement I ever had was somehow overshadowed by her. Every milestone I reached was compared to when she did it better, younger, more impressively. When I got into college, the dinner conversation was about how Marin had gotten into a better one. When I got my first job, it was about how Marin's starting salary was higher. When Troy proposed to me, my mother's first words were not congratulations, but I hope Marin finds someone soon too. She is not getting any younger. "Mom, I am at my dress fitting," I said, trying to sound firm but hearing the familiar waver in my voice. "Can it wait until tomorrow?" "No, it cannot wait," she snapped. "This is a surprise. You will want to see this in person. Just come over for an hour. Marin has been working so hard on this for you." The guilt trip was classic. Marin has been working so hard for me. Not with me. For me? As if I were a project. I looked at June, who was shaking her head, slowly mouthing the word no. But I could already feel myself caving, that old programming kicking in. If I said no, I was selfish. If I set a boundary, I was ungrateful. If I prioritized my own needs, I was the problem. "Okay, I will come over after this," I heard myself say. "Good," my mother said, her tone immediately brightening. "We will see you in an hour." And she hung up before I could change my mind. June grabbed my hand. "You do not have to go, Sierra. Troy told you that you do not have to say yes to everything anymore." She was right. Troy had been gently, patiently trying to help me see what I had been conditioned to ignore my entire life. That my family's treatment of me was not normal. That healthy families do not systematically sacrifice one child for another. But decades of conditioning do not disappear in a few months, even with the most loving fiancé in the world. "I know," I whispered, "but if I do not go, it will be so much worse." An hour later, I pulled into my parents' driveway. The house looked the same as it always had, a large colonial in a nice suburb, the kind of house that screamed normal, happy family from the outside. I sat in my car for a moment, trying to prepare myself for whatever was coming. My hands were shaking slightly as I gripped the steering wheel. I thought about Troy's words from the night before. "Serafina," he had called me by the full name, only he used "you do not owe them your peace of mind. Remember that." I walked in without knocking. I had not lived here in 6 years, but my mother still expected me to treat it like I was just visiting my real home. The living room was too warm, the air thick with my mother's signature candle scent, vanilla, and something cloying. My father, Jacob, sat in his usual chair, reading a newspaper, barely glancing up when I entered. That was typical. He had perfected the art of being present but absent there, but not really there, especially when it came to standing up for me. "Oh, good you are here," my mother said, appearing from the kitchen with that bright, brittle smile she wore when she was particularly pleased with herself. Come into the living room. Marin has been dying to show you. I followed her, dread pooling in my stomach. And then I saw it. Marin was standing on a small platform in front of the mirror, the kind you would use for a dress fitting. She was wearing a wedding dress. Not a white cocktail dress. Not an ivory or cream-colored gown. A full, elaborate, crystal-encrusted wedding dress with a long train and a cathedral veil. It was more ornate than mine, more expensive-looking, more everything. For a moment I thought I had misunderstood. Maybe she was trying on wedding dresses for herself. Maybe she had gotten engaged and I somehow missed it. But then my mother clapped her hands together and said, "Isn't not it perfect? Marin is going to walk you down the aisle in this. She will look absolutely stunning." The room tilted. Walk me down the aisle. In a wedding dress. At my wedding. I must have looked as shocked as I felt because Marin turned around, a triumphant smile on her face. "Surprise, little sister. Mom and I thought it would be so special if I could be the one to give you away, since you know it is such an important role. And I found this gorgeous dress. It is not technically a wedding dress. It is just very formal white. It is a wedding dress, Marin," I said, my voice higher than I intended. "You are wearing a wedding dress." She tilted her head, her expression shifting to mock her, a look I had seen 1,000 times before. "Oh, Sieja, do not be so dramatic. It is not like anyone will be looking at me. All eyes will be on you. I just want to look nice for your big day." My mother jumped in before I could respond. "Sierra, honestly, you are being oversensitive. Marin is doing you a huge favor. Your father was not sure he could handle the emotion of walking you down the aisle. Were you, Jacob?" My father rustled his newspaper. "I am sure it will be fine, Sarah," he muttered, not looking up. But my mother ignored him. "See?" Marin stepped up. "You should be grateful." Grateful? I should be grateful that my sister wanted to wear a wedding dress to my wedding. I felt like I was losing my mind. This was insane. This was so clearly, obviously wrong, and yet they were all looking at me like I was the unreasonable one. "I do not want you to wear white to my wedding," I said, trying to keep my voice steady. "And I definitely do not want you to wear a wedding dress." Marin's face crumpled, and tears instantly appeared in her eyes. Another skill she had perfected over the years. "See, Mom, I told you she would make this all about her. I was just trying to do something nice." "You are always so selfish, Sierra," my mother said, her voice turning cold. "After everything we have done for you, after everything Marin has sacrificed for you over the years, and this is how you repay us." My phone buzzed in my pocket. Troy. I looked at my mother, at Marin, still posed on that platform in her ridiculous gown, at my father, who would not even look at me. "Troy is calling," I said. "I need to take this." I walked out onto the porch, my hands shaking so badly I almost dropped my phone. The moment I answered, I started crying. "They want Marin to walk me down the aisle in a wedding dress, Troy. An actual wedding dress. Can you believe this?" There was a pause, and then Troy's voice came through, steady and firm. "I am coming over there right now. This ends today." "No, wait," I said, but he had already hung up. I stood there on the porch, trying to catch my breath, trying to make sense of what had just happened. A wedding dress. At my wedding. And somehow, I was the bad guy for objecting. When I went back inside, my mother was comforting Marin, who was still fake crying on the platform. "I need time to think about this," I said. "I will call you later." My mother smiled that awful, confident smile. "Of course, honey. Take all the time you need. I know you will come around. You always do." I drove home in a blur, tears streaming down my face. By the time I pulled into our apartment complex, Troy was already there, standing by his car waiting for me. The moment he saw my face, he pulled me into his arms. "Tell me everything," he said quietly. "From the beginning." We went inside and I told him. Not just about today, but about everything. About how when I was 12, Marin had stolen my grandmother's sapphire necklace, the one Nana had specifically left to me, and my parents had made me give it to her because Marin wanted it more. About how in high school, Marin had deliberately sabotaged my relationship with my first boyfriend by telling him I was cheating on him, which I was not, but by the time I found out what she had said, he would not speak to me. About how every birthday, every Christmas, every holiday was really about Marin. About how I had learned to make myself small, to not ask for much, to not expect much, because that was easier than the constant disappointment. Troy listened to all of it, his jaw getting tighter and tighter. When I finished, he took my hands and looked directly into my eyes. "Serafina, what they are doing to you is abuse. It is called scapegoating. You have been made the target for this entire family's dysfunction, and they have trained you to accept it. I started to protest to make excuses because that is what I had always done. But Troy kept talking. A normal family does not systematically sacrifice one child for another. A normal family does not demand that you give up your grandmother's necklace. A normal family does not try to sabotage your relationships. And a normal family definitely does not show up to your wedding in a wedding dress and expect you to be grateful about it. His words cracked something open inside me. I started sobbing, really sobbing, not the quiet tears I usually cried, but loud, messy years of pain pouring out. I wanted to cancel the wedding. I wanted to run away. I wanted to disappear. But Troy held my face in his hands and said something I would never forget. If we run, they win. They have taken 28 years of your life. They are not taking this day. We are getting married and we are doing it on our terms. And if that means your family does not come, then they do not come. June arrived an hour later with Thai food and wine. She had already suspected things were bad, but when I told her about the wedding dress, her mouth literally fell open. That is next level, she said. That is not just boundary crossing. That is a full invasion. Troy called his older brother Caleb, who worked in security. Caleb listened to the story and said, "This is manipulative behavior, but it is also predictable. People who have gotten away with this kind of thing for decades do not stop just because you ask nicely. You need to be prepared for escalation." Over the next few hours, we made a plan. A real plan. We would hire professional security for the wedding with explicit instructions about the dress code. We would notify the venue about potential disruptions. We would create a tight guest list with clear clothing guidelines. June and Caleb would handle any problem guests. And I would call my uncle Mateo, my father's younger brother, and ask if he would walk me down the aisle if my father refused. Uncle Mateo was the only member of my extended family who had ever really seen me. He had been the one to slip me extra money in college when I was struggling. He had been the one to show up to my college graduation when my parents had skipped it because Marin had a work event the same weekend. When I called him and explained the situation, he was quiet for a long moment. Then he said, "Sarah, I have watched this happen your whole life. It has broken my heart. I would be honored to walk you down that aisle." I cried again, but this time they were different tears. Relief. Gratitude. The feeling of being truly seen. The next day, my mother and Marin showed up at our apartment unannounced. I knew the moment Troy opened the door and his face went hard that they were there. I came out of the bedroom to find them in our living room, Marin with red-rimmed eyes, my mother with that concerned expression she used when she was about to manipulate someone. "We have been so worried about you, honey," my mother said. "You were not answering your phone. We just wanted to make sure you were okay." I stood next to Troy, drawing strength from his presence. "I have made my decision," I said, my voice steadier than I expected. "Marin will not be wearing a wedding dress to my wedding. She will not be wearing white at all. If she wants to attend, she needs to wear a color." My mother's face transformed instantly from concern to fury. "After everything we have done for you, this is how you repay us. You are being completely unreasonable." Marin started crying again. "I was just trying to be part of your special day," she sobbed. "I just wanted to feel included. If you are going to be this cruel, maybe I should not come at all." It was a threat. She expected me to panic, to backpedal, to apologize. But Troy's hand was on my back and June was in the kitchen listening, and I remembered what Caleb had said about predictable behavior. "That is your choice," I said quietly. The room went silent. My mother stared at me like I had slapped her. "What did you just say?" I said, "That is your choice," I repeated. "I want you both at my wedding, but not in a wedding dress. Those are my boundaries." Marin's tears dried up instantly. "Fine," she snapped. "If you are going to be this selfish, I will not come. And do not come crying to me when you realize you have ruined your own wedding." They left my mother pausing at the door to deliver one final line. "You will regret this, Sierra." After they left, I collapsed on the couch, shaking. Troy held me while I cried. I had just told my sister she might not come to my wedding. I had stood up to my mother. It felt terrifying and exhilarating and completely surreal. Over the next week, my father tried to intervene. He called asking me to compromise, to be the bigger person, to think about family harmony. When I asked him directly if he had known Marin was planning to wear a wedding dress, he went silent. Then he said, "It is just a dress, Sarah. Is it really worth all this drama?" That was when I knew. He had known. He had let it happen. And he thought I should just accept it. "Dad, I have compromised my entire life," I told him. "Not on my wedding day." 3 days before the wedding, my father sent me a text. Your mother and Marin are very hurt. I do not know if I can walk you down the aisle with all this tension in the family. I read that text 5 times, feeling the final thread of hope snap. He was choosing them. Again. He was making my wedding day contingent on my willingness to let Marin wear a wedding dress. It was so absurd that I almost laughed. I called Uncle Mateo. Dad might not walk me down the aisle, I said. Can you do it? I already cleared my schedule, he said. I have been expecting this call for 3 days. The morning of my wedding, I woke up with a strange sense of calm. June came early to help me get ready, and we talked and laughed in a way that felt normal, healthy, like what a wedding morning should feel like. My dress fit perfectly. My hair looked beautiful. Troy had sent me a note that made me cry happy tears. Everything was exactly as it should be. Then my phone rang. Dad, you need to come to the front gate right now, he said, his voice tight. Marin is wearing a white dress and security would not let her in. You are embarrassing this family in front of everyone. My stomach dropped. Did you know she was going to do this? I asked. Silence. Then it is just a dress, Sarah. I hung up. My hands were shaking, but June grabbed them. You do not have to go out there, she said. You do not have to fix this. I know, I said. And I did not. The music started. Canon indeed, just like I had always dreamed. Uncle Mateo offered me his arm, and I took it, feeling his steady strength beside me. We stepped into the doorway of the venue, and I could see Troy at the end of the aisle, his face full of love and pride. The afternoon sunlight streamed through the tall windows, casting golden light across the white rose petals scattered down the aisle. Every guest had turned to watch me, smiling, some already dabbing at their eyes. This was it. My moment. The one I had been planning for months. I took my first step. Then I heard it. A sound that made my blood run cold. A shriek, high-pitched and furious, cutting through the classical music like a knife. Marin, you cannot do this to me. Get your hands off me right now. The music faltered. The violinist actually stopped mid-bow. Every single head in the venue whipped around toward the entrance behind me. I turned my bouquet trembling in my hands and saw a scene I will never forget as long as I live. Marin stood at the main entrance of the venue, and she was wearing a wedding dress. Not the one from 2 weeks ago. This one was even more extravagant, a ball gown style with a massive skirt that took up half the doorway, covered in crystals and pearls that caught the light like a disco ball. The bodice was completely sheer with strategic beading. The train had to be at least 10 feet long, and perched on her head was a cathedral-length veil that cascaded down her back like a waterfall of tulle. She looked like she was the one getting married. No, she looked like she was trying to outdo me at my own wedding. 2 security guards, both large men in dark suits, had positioned themselves in front of her, physically blocking her path. One had his hand up in a stop gesture. The other was speaking into a radio. My mother was beside Marin, her face a mask of absolute fury, red splotches blooming on her cheeks and neck. She was screaming at the guards, her voice shrill enough to echo off the vaulted ceiling. Behind them both, my father stood frozen, his face pale, his hands hanging uselessly at his sides. This is outrageous. My mother shrieked. Do you know who we are? We are the mother and sister of the bride. You cannot keep us out of our own family member's wedding. The taller security guard's voice was calm, but carried across the now dead, silent venue. Ma'am, as I have explained, this guest is in clear violation of the dress code. The bride specifically instructed that no one except her is permitted to wear white or wedding attire. We have our orders. Orders. Marin's voice cracked with hysteria. From my own sister. This is a misunderstanding. She knows about this dress. We discussed it. I felt Uncle Mateo's hand tighten on mine. Do you want me to handle this? He murmured. But I could not move. I was frozen in the doorway watching this nightmare unfold. Around me, I could hear the guests beginning to murmur. The whispers started low but grew louder. Is that a wedding dress? Why would she wear that? Oh my God, that is so inappropriate. Did the bride know? June, who had been waiting at the altar, suddenly appeared at my side. Do you want me to go deal with this? She whispered urgently. Before I could answer, Marin's voice rose to a screech. I am not leaving. This is my sister's wedding, and I have every right to be here. Sierra, tell them. Every eye in the venue turned to me. 150 guests all staring, waiting to see what I would do. My hands were shaking so badly that my bouquet rustled. This was the moment. The moment where I usually caved, usually gave in, usually sacrificed myself to keep the peace. Troy started walking up the aisle toward me, his face set with determination. My mother saw him coming and her voice grew even more desperate. Troy, thank God. Tell these men this is ridiculous. We are family. Marin just wanted to look nice for Sierra's special day. This is all a terrible misunderstanding. It is not a misunderstanding, Mrs. Mercer. Troy's voice cut through the chaos like steel. Sierra specifically told you and Marin that white was not permitted. You chose to ignore that boundary. Boundary. My mother spat the word like it was poison. Since when does my daughter have boundaries with her own family? We have done everything for her. We raised her, we loved her, we supported her, and this is how she repays us. By humiliating us in front of all these people. Marin started crying loud, theatrical sobs that would have been convincing if I had not seen her turn them on and off my entire life. I just wanted to be part of her day, she wailed. I just wanted to feel included. I thought if I wore something beautiful, she would be happy. But instead, she has these men blocking me like I am some kind of criminal. The security guard remained unmoved. Ma'am, you were informed of the dress code in writing. Your name is on the list of guests who were specifically warned. That did it. My mother's face went from red to purple. Warned. You make it sound like we are threats. We are her mother and sister. You know what, fine. If this is how my own daughter wants to treat her family, then fine. She grabbed Marin's arm and tried to push past the guards. One of them smoothly sidestepped, maintaining the barrier. Ma'am, I need you to step back. Caleb had appeared now too, moving swiftly down the side aisle. He pulled out his phone and held it up, clearly recording. For legal purposes, he said loudly, I am documenting this attempted disruption of a private event. My mother saw the camera and absolutely lost it. You are recording us. You are making us look like monsters. Marin, sweetheart, let them see. Let everyone see how we are being treated. Marin on cue collapsed into more sobs. She tried to sink to the floor dramatically, but the enormous dress kept her somewhat upright. All I wanted was to walk my baby sister down the aisle, she cried. That was all. But she has turned into someone I do not even recognize. This man, she pointed at Troy, with a shaking hand, he has poisoned her against us. He has taken our sweet Sarah and turned her into this cold, heartless person who would embarrass her own family. That was when my father finally spoke. His voice was quiet, but in the silent venue, everyone heard it. Sarah, sweetheart, please. Just let them come in. We can talk about this later. Do not ruin your wedding over this. Ruin my wedding. The words came out of my mouth before I could stop them loud and clear. I was not the one who showed up in a wedding dress, Dad. Gasps rippled through the guests. Several people pulled out their phones. I could see flashes going off. My mother pointed at me, her hand trembling with rage. You see how disrespectful she is. We gave her everything, and this is what we get. Public humiliation. After everything we have done, all the sacrifices we have made. Troy was beside me now, his hand on my back, solid and real. The only sacrifices made in your family, he said, his voice carrying, were Sierra's. And that ends today. How dare you, my mother hissed. You have known her for 3 years. We have known her for 28. You do not get to tell us about our own daughter. You are right, Troy said. I have only known her for 3 years. But in those 3 years, I have never once made her feel small. I have never stolen from her. I have never sabotaged her relationships. I have never demanded she set herself on fire to keep you warm. The guests were not even pretending not to stare anymore. Several of Troy's relatives had stood up, moving closer, forming a protective semicircle. June was crying. Uncle Mateo had his jaw clenched so tight I could see the muscle jumping. Marin lurched forward, trying one more time to push past the guards. Sierra, please, she screamed. I am sorry, okay? I am sorry. Just let me in. Let me be part of your day. I promise I will change. I will go home and change right now if that is what you want. Just please do not shut me out. It was a good performance. Her mascara was running, her voice was breaking in all the right places, her hands were clasped in supplication. 2 years ago, maybe even 1 year ago, it would have worked. I would have crumbled. I would have let her in. I would have swallowed my hurt and anger and made myself smaller so she could shine. But I had spent the last 6 months in therapy. I had spent countless nights talking with Troy about what healthy love looked like. I had Uncle Mateo standing beside me, had June ready to fight for me, had Caleb documenting everything. I had built a life where I mattered. I looked at Marin, really looked at her, and I felt nothing but a deep, tired sadness. No, I said clearly. The answer is no. Marin's tears stopped as abruptly as if I had flipped a switch. Her face transformed, the grief melting away to reveal cold fury underneath. Fine, she snapped, her voice suddenly steady. You want to be alone. You want to cut off your family. Fine. But do not come crying to us when this marriage falls apart. Do not come crawling back when you realize you made the biggest mistake of your life. This marriage, I said, surprised by how calm my own voice sounded, is the best decision I have ever made. And setting boundaries with people who hurt me is the second best. My mother made a sound like a wounded animal. You are dead to me, she said, each word sharp and deliberate. Do you hear me, Sarah? Dead. We will not forget this. We will never forget this. The security guards moved forward, then gently but firmly guiding them toward the exit. Marin tried to resist, her huge dress catching on a chair. My father finally stepped forward to help untangle her, his movements mechanical, defeated. They made slow, awkward progress toward the door, Marin crying again, my mother hurling insults over her shoulder. You will regret this. You are making the worst mistake of your life. No one treats family this way. Everyone here sees what kind of person you really are. But as I looked around at the guests, I did not see judgment in their faces. I saw shock, yes. Confusion, definitely. But also understanding. Sympathy. Support. Troy's mother had tears streaming down her face, but she was nodding at me. June's parents both had their arms around each other, watching with sad but approving expressions. Several people were shaking their heads in disbelief at my mother's behavior, not mine. The door finally closed behind them, the ornate wooden doors shutting with a decisive thud. The silence that followed was profound, thick, and heavy. No one moved. No one spoke. Even the officiant standing at the altar looked uncertain about what to do next. Then Uncle Mateo squeezed my hand and said loud enough for everyone to hear, "Well, sweetheart, I think that takes care of the something old and something borrowed. How about we focus on the something new? Your life starting right now." A ripple of nervous laughter went through the guests. The tension broke slightly. Troy took my other hand and looked into my eyes. "Are you okay?" he asked softly. "Do you need a minute?" I looked at him, at this man who had stood up for me against my entire family, who had helped me see that I deserved better, who had never once made me feel like my pain was an inconvenience. "No," I said. "I am ready. Let us get married." He kissed my forehead. "Then let us do this." The musicians started again, picking up canon in D from the beginning. Troy walked back to the altar. Uncle Mateo adjusted my veil, which had gotten slightly askew during the chaos, and offered me his arm again. "Let me walk you to your future, sweetheart," he said. "A future where you never have to apologize for existing." Tears streamed down my face, but they were not tears of sadness. They were tears of release, of truth, of the moment when everyone could finally see what I had been dealing with my entire life. I took a deep breath, squared my shoulders, and nodded. We started walking down the aisle. This time there were no interruptions. As we passed the guests, I heard whispers, but I also heard murmurs of support. Troy's mother reached out and squeezed my hand as I passed. June's parents were crying. Uncle Mateo walked me all the way to Troy, who took my hands and whispered, "I am so proud of you." The ceremony was beautiful. We said our vows, we kissed, and the applause was deafening. Not just for our marriage, but I think for my courage. For standing up. For refusing to let my wedding be hijacked. At the reception, the atmosphere was warm and celebratory, though I could feel the residual shock from what had happened. Troy's mother approached me during dinner and hugged me tightly. "You are incredibly strong," she said. "I am so glad my son found you." June came over with an update. "Your mom called 17 times. Marin called 12. I blocked them both on your phone." "Thank you," I said, and I meant it. Uncle Mateo gave a toast that brought the house down. "To family," he said, raising his glass. "Whether it is the family you are born into or the family you choose. And to having the courage to know the difference." During the father-daughter dance, Uncle Mateo took me onto the floor. "I never had children," he said quietly as we swayed to the music. "But if I had a daughter, I would want her to be exactly like you. Strong, kind, and brave enough to choose herself." "I am sorry you had to see all that," I whispered. "I am sorry I did not speak up sooner," he replied. "I should have protected you more. But I am here now. And I always will be." Later, Troy and I snuck away to the venue's rooftop terrace. The party was still going strong below, but we needed a moment alone. "It hurts," I admitted, leaning against him. "But I also feel free." "That is because you told the truth," he said. You stopped protecting them and started protecting yourself. In our hotel room that night, I finally turned on my phone. The messages were vicious. Marin accused me of ruining her life, of being jealous, of being a terrible sister. My mother said I had broken her heart, that I had humiliated the family, that she would never forgive me. My father sent one message: "I hope you are happy now." I typed out a single response to the family group chat: "We need space. Your actions at our wedding were unacceptable and hurtful. When you are ready to take responsibility and offer a genuine apology for deliberately trying to sabotage our day, we can talk. Until then, please do not contact us." Troy read it over my shoulder and nodded. I hit send and turned off my phone. We flew to Italy the next morning for our honeymoon, and for 2 weeks I did not think about them at all. I ate pasta and drank wine and walked through ancient cities holding my husband's hand. I laughed. I relaxed. I existed without the constant weight of their expectations and manipulation. When we got back, I started therapy. My therapist gave me language for what I had experienced: scapegoating, triangulation, emotional neglect, parentification, golden child and scapegoat dynamics. Every session, another piece of my life clicked into place. I was not crazy. I was not overly sensitive. I had been systematically abused. 6 months after the wedding, June came over for dinner and casually mentioned that Marin had gotten engaged. I waited for the familiar pang of jealousy or inadequacy or whatever complicated emotion usually came with news about my sister. But I felt nothing. Just a mild, distant hope that she would be happy. "That is her journey," I said. "I hope it goes well for her. But I cannot be part of it." Uncle Mateo sent me a framed photo of him walking me down the aisle. The note attached said, "The day I gained a daughter. Family is what we make it." My father called once about 2 months after the wedding. "Marin is planning her wedding," he said. "Your mother wants to know if you will come." "Has anything changed, Dad?" I asked. "Has anyone acknowledged what happened at my wedding?" Silence. "Then it was just a misunderstanding, Sarah." "Then my answer is no," I said. "I wish them well." And I hung up. I did not feel guilty. That was the biggest change. I did not feel guilty anymore. We had dinner parties with June, Caleb, and Uncle Mateo. We celebrated holidays in our own apartment with the family we chose. Troy's parents welcomed me with open arms. I found out what it felt like to be in a family where people apologized when they hurt you, where boundaries were respected, where love was not conditional on your willingness to sacrifice yourself. One night, almost a year after the wedding, I was looking through our wedding photos. There was one of me in the doorway, Uncle Mateo beside me, and in the background you could just barely see Marin in her wedding dress being escorted out by security. I showed it to Troy. "Should we have that one removed from the album?" I asked. He looked at it for a long moment. "No," he said. "It is the truth. It is part of your story. The part where you stop letting them write it for you." I thought about that. About how for 28 years I had let them define who I was. The difficult one. The ungrateful one. The one who was never quite enough. And in one moment, one decision to say no, I had taken that pen back. I still miss them sometimes. Or rather, I miss the family. I thought I had the family I wanted them to be. But I do not miss the way they made me feel. I do not miss the constant anxiety, the walking on eggshells, the bracing for the next humiliation. I do not miss feeling like I had to earn the love that should have been freely given. Troy and I were dancing in our living room one evening, no music, just swaying together in the quiet. "Sometimes I still miss the family I thought I had," I admitted. He pulled me closer. "That is because you have a generous heart. But I would not trade this life, this real life, for anything." "Neither would I whispered. "The real revenge is not a single moment of vindication. It is building a life that is happy, healthy, and full of respect. Whether your family is part of it or not, it is waking up without dread. It is going to bed without rehashing every conversation wondering what you did wrong. It is the radical act of believing that you deserve to be treated with basic human dignity." My wedding day was supposed to be about starting a new chapter with Troy. And it was. But it was also the day I started a new chapter with myself. The day I stopped apologizing for existing. The day I chose me. And honestly, I have never looked back. Here is my question for you. Have you ever had to choose between your own peace and keeping toxic people comfortable? Have you ever been made to feel guilty for having boundaries? Drop your story in the comments. You are not alone. And if this video helped you feel less alone, please like and subscribe. Sometimes the best thing we can do is tell our truth and let others know they are not crazy for wanting better. Thank you for listening to mine.